Hey, and welcome back to another episode in the Project Core tutorial series. Today we're going to be covering config values, attributes, and avatar state. For the last two, I'll get into them later and what they're really about, but for starters, we're going to be covering how to add things into the config and allow users to configure what they want with your ability. So to start off with, we're going to go down to the load method, and we're going to be adding stuff here. And the stuff here is what we're going to be using to actually add stuff into the config. For this episode, I've enabled GitHub Copilot, mainly just because it's really good at finding patterns and executing and implementing them really quickly. So for starters, we're going to be using the config manager class. All right. So the config manager class contains 4 configs, one for the default config, which is what abilities are in, the language config, the avatar state config, which has all the values for when you're in the avatar state, along with the preset config. Because this is a normal ability, we are going to be using the default one, and we're going to be using this thing called the add default method. So you can use any path you like. You can use the same path that Project Core uses, but I generally find that when you're creating an add-on ability, it's nice for server owners if you put it under extra abilities, and that way it appears at the bottom. So we're going to be going under extra abilities, and then you're going to be putting your name. You're going to be putting the ability name, and then you're going to be putting what particularly you're doing. So in this case, we're going to be writing 0.9 for the speed, and that's going to add a thing to the config there. Next, we're going to be doing the same for range, and you see that GitHub Copilot is very good at figuring out that because I have a range variable at the top and it's 40, it already knows that it's likely going to be the next thing that I want to do. So we'll go ahead and it's probably going to do the rest of the variables for us, which is fantastic. And I think there's just one more for cooldown. Yep, there is. Perfect. So with that, we've added our main 5 variables. We don't need to set copies to default, copy defaults to true like it's suggesting, because that's already done by Project Core. So instead, we just have to use the default config and use save. Now, the reason that you must click save is otherwise it's going to add the defaults into memory, but it's not actually going to write them to file. So if you want them written to file, you must call save. Next, what we're going to do is we have to then load these values as soon as we've actually, created the ability. So we're going to be doing this.speed, and then we're going to be getting the value from the config. Ironically, GitHub Copilot has got this perfectly. So same with the range, perfect, radius, perfect, damage, perfect, and cooldown, perfect. So one thing to note is you must use different methods depending on the variable type. So because cooldown is a long, you must use getLong. Additionally, you can also specify here the default if this thing is not found in the config for some reason. For example, if the server owner deletes their config and starts afresh, or if they're deleting values and trying to reset them to the default, you can then put these here. So if it doesn't exist, it's going to use a value and not make it 0, because 0 would actually be quite harmful for our ability. Right, so now that we've got those, this should automatically load into the config. Like before, let's go ahead and test it. So we'll click install, build success. We're going to go to firework. We're going to chuck it into, no, this is the wrong server. We're going to put it into our test server. We're going to go to Project Core, abilities. No, click that by mistake. We're going to put that in there. We're going to run the test server again. And I'm going to start Minecraft in the meantime. Right, so now that we've loaded into game, Fireworks still works fine. So let's go check out the config now. We'll go to plugins, we'll go to Project Core, and we're going to open up the config.yml. Immediately we can see that there's a new thing added to the config. Perfect. So one thing that's really easy to see is the cooldown, because it comes up immediately. So if we reload the config, and then we do firework again, we can see the cooldown is now 10 seconds. Excellent. We could test this again. Let's test some of the damage. Let's set this to 10 or 5 hearts. We'll spawn some mobs. Zombie. Oh, it didn't do anything because I forgot to reload the config. There we go, 9.92. Perfect. Now you know that it's not exactly 10, but that's also because zombies have a hidden point of armor. So if I used another mob, for example a creeper, it should be exactly 10. There we go. Boom. And if I wait for the cooldown to finish, done. Nice. So with that, that's the basic config. Next, we want to add a config for the description of the ability, how to use it, and add a custom death message too. Unlike the normal config which uses extra abilities, the language config is very particular and it must be in the same format as normal. So in this case, we're going to go into the config manager and just copy the addresses for the language config stuff. So we can use Control B in IntelliJ and that will take us to the class. This is a decompiled version that it's viewing. We can go and find, this is under the language config stuff, and we will just copy Blaze. So we're going to change this, and we're going to go language config, config manager.languageconfig.get, and add these to it. We're going to change this to firework. And then we can add a description. So, firework. What's our description for firework? Explode like a firework, except not really. I didn't think this far ahead. And we're just going to be change the instructions to left click to shoot fire from your fists. May or may not explode. Right, and then now we can customize the death message. So you'll see that in this death message it has placeholders. Make sure you keep these the same. You can change out ability to firework or whatever you want here, but if you keep the brackets and use this placeholder, it's automatically going to style it based on the color of element of the ability, etc. So we're going to do exploded into 1,000,000 pieces by attacker's firework. Nice, and like the language config, we also have to call save here. Other than that, that is all we really need, because Project Cora is going to get those by itself really. So if we click install on Maven, build success, copy it, go back here, paste it. We're going to reload the plugin. Now if we go B display fire, if I can spell it correctly, we can see there is firework. And if we go click to see how firework, users left click to shoot fire from your fist, may or may not explode. Explode like a fire, except not really. I don't think there's fire here. Perfect. And if we want to test the death message, we can go ahead and do that and get another player.
10 minutes later.
Okay, I found a valuable sacrifice that is going to help me show the death message. Nah, pre-made thing I found. Anyway, we're going to ignore that. Before I do that, I'm going to go into the config, change the cooldown back to 4 seconds, otherwise it's going to be a real pain to kill him. We'll go ahead and we will reload bending. There you go, right. Stay still. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Due to explode into a million pieces by strange Rollins firework. Perfect. So now we know our death message works. Fantastic. Sweet. Okay, so next, now that we've done all of this, let's actually make our ability work in the avatar state. Right now, we can use the avatar state, but it doesn't actually change very much, right? Also, when it sets to day or to night, our ability doesn't actually change with, the day-night cycle. So why is this? Well, this is because all our variables aren't actually attributes. So if we go up here, all of these variables here need to have an attribute to be modified by avatar state. So for something like this, you just have to go, oh, I added the wrong thing. Yep, attribute.speed. Right, and this allows not add-on, but it allows anything that changes the values of abilities to then hook into this particular variable in Java. So by specifying attribute.speed, anything that modifies speed now knows what variable to modify in this class. Although it's called speed, that isn't always a surefire way, because we could call it absolutely anything we want. For example, we could call it, tick speed or real speed or something else. And it doesn't matter what the variable is called, as long as it's annotated with this attribute here. Project Cora knows that this is the speed variable, so anything modifying the speed variable is going to be modifying this field here. Right, so next we're going to do this the same, but we're going to do it with the other things. Obviously that isn't speed, so we're going to change that. This is radius, this is damage, and this is cooldown. Right, so now that we've got that, avatar state should be able to hook into our ability. And it says speed is not there because I still have speed set to the name I changed it to before. Right, so if we set this now, avatar state should, in theory, be able to modify our things. So if we update our jar, we reload the plugin, we turn on avatar state, and we turn on firework, and you can see it went on much, much longer. If we get a mob, let's go over here, by default the damage is 10, and that did 20 damage, so 2 times the normal damage. And so you can see avatar state is now working on the ability. It's just, but it's not configured to what we want. So that's our next step. For the next step, we're going to go into the avatar state config, and we're going to have a read of all of the abilities here. So by default, you'll see that under abilities, there is an all section prefixed with an underscore, just so it appears at the top. These are the variables here, and if something is not specified, for example, if we go into abilities and we look for fire, we can see that there's things for fire shield, things for blaze, things for fire jet, things for lightning, things for fire burst, and they have manual things here which specify what the variables should be set to. However, if there is not any for firework, because we haven't set any, it's going to use things in the all category. In this case, the all category from fire will have priority over the all category in abilities, and only if something isn't mentioned in this all category will it go from the all category of abilities. So we can see here, all, which is the default, damage is set to 2 times, the range is set to 2 times, and the speed set to 1.5 times, and the cooldown set to 0.5 times. So if we just confirm that again, let's reload things so the avatar state comes off cooldown. We use firework, only a 2-second delay. So yep, the cooldown is also working correctly. So with that, we now know we need to add something here to actually customize how the avatar state works with our ability. So we come back here, we need to go down and add more stuff to the config. This time it's going to be the avatar state config. We're going to go get add default abilities, fire.firework.speed. Now we can customize the speed here. So let's set this to be 1.95 times the normal speed. Now the reason we use a times here rather than just setting it to 1.8, which is what 2 times speed would be, if we keep it as a times and then something like this, it means that even if a user changes their config, it's going to be relative to what they changed theirs in their config. It just gives a bit more configurability. Range, let's set this to 2.5 times. Radius, I think in general we'll just add plus 0.3. Damage, yeah, we'll make it times 0.5 there. So if we click install, just kidding, I forgot to add a save check here, so we got to do that too. Click the save, we'll re-click install to build it, build success, copy, go back to abilities, paste, reload. Now if we close the YML and we open it again, now there's one for firework. So there we go. So we now have our own customizable values here. So let's see if it then uses them. So we'll go to AvatarState. We'll find a mob first. There's some sheep over here. We'll turn on AvatarState, sorry. You can see I've got the particles of AvatarState. We'll click it. 20.
1 hour later.
Okay, so after quite a bit of debugging, I realized what we saw was actually a bug in PK itself. So it appears that if you don't restart the server, the AvatarState modifier is actually cached, and therefore it will always use the old values. So therefore, if you restart the server, everything is absolutely fine. I went ahead and already fixed that bug already because it bothered me that, once I found a bug, it wasn't already fixed. So I've already fixed it. It will be out in the next release. But regardless, that's pretty much the end of this episode. So thanks for joining me. I hope to see you again for the next episode. And I hope this episode was informative and helps you along in your add-on creation journey. See you next time.